Hi, I'm Luke Baldwin. I'm a principal consultant at Boston Hale, and I specialise in placing senior finance, pricing and legal project management professionals into global law firms. I'm here today with Kevin O'Sullivan, who's the Head of Legal Project Management at Baker McKenzie, to talk about everything LPM. Kevin, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good stuff. So how do you feel LPM has changed over the last few years?
If I cast my mind back, I joined Baker McKenzie about 4.5 years ago. I remember being surprised that LPM was always spoken about almost as a glorified financial reporting unit. I think quickly moving from there, and slow in some cases, but the movement from there has been more into the role of leading on process, managing risks and driving efficiency through the way in which the matters run. Certainly at Baker McKenzie, we've moved through the gears quite quickly on that. So, yes, we did start out from the base of financial reporting and providing collaborative working sites to drive efficiency into the matters. But from there, we've very quickly got to the stage where the LPMs are playing a senior leadership role, managing on the process, managing on the resourcing, managing all of those things, which don't lend themselves to being directly involved in the content of law.
Sure.
And that's been something where I think the industry is going, and that's what LPM will soon mean across the industry.
And so how does legal project management fit in with, say, pricing and legal process management?
Legal process management for me is probably where processes have been re-engineered, they've been looked at, they've been worked on a little bit, made more efficient, made more effective, and then they reach a more steady state. Yes, legal project management will continue to play with them in a continuous improvement process to make sure that it fits for the client or the matter-specific challenges, but they become a steady state aspect. Pricing, similarly, I think is a function in its own right, and there are specialists who are pricing specialists, understanding all the nuances and all the different approaches to that. LPM has a role to play in that, in supporting the use of those tools, those pricing tools, and sometimes in being an on-the-ground challenge for some of the process aspects which we have helped to disaggregate and understand, and therefore bringing that challenge into the pricing consideration. Also coming from a different standpoint, being a commercially minded person, bringing the firm's considerations and maybe the client's considerations at play into that pricing discussion. Additionally, also with spreadsheeting skills, we can actually lend a hand in building a bottom-up price.
So what is successful technology and how does it fit in?
So there's a lot of talk and a lot of examples of new technology disrupting into the legal space. Good disruption, bringing good change. For me, the important thing is that where there are available technologies, that we don't just lock down on one supplier relationship and one supplier solution, but actually to have more than that in our armoury, on the basis that the needs of the client can be different, and the needs of the matter are certainly often different. And also with the fast pace of change, to make sure that we're able to be fleet of foot to change and to bring in the best-in-class solution at any given time is going to be crucial for successful implementation of technology. In terms of embedding that technology, LPMs obviously are not the experts of the given technology, but we are experts in facilitating good deployment of new ways of working, and that's been the space which we have typically played in. So I think that brings me on to the second technology which we require, which is what I call matter management. And this is really the controls which can be placed around managing a matter in a more efficient way. So that would involve things like the planning, the tracking, the resource management, and the reporting on progress, and the dashboards which tell us how we're getting on against the task, and even all the way through to the learnings. And I think that allows the LPM to play in a more standardised core process, where some of the process is understood, some of it is led by the technology, allowing the LPM then to start to play around the edges of that, to bespoke things the last 20% to make sure that it's right for the client, it's right for the matter in place. And that then enables the LPM to play that key role and remove some of this burden which would otherwise be creating these processes and managing them through spreadsheets or managing them through not fit for purpose systems.
What about headcount then and the team structures? How have they changed?
So LPM has been growing fast for a long time, but I think the speed will now pick up even more. Certainly at Baker's we're going to grow exponentially in the next year or so. And I think the reason for that is that there's a greater understanding of the role of an LPM and the impact that it's starting to have within the client-facing work. I think the structure which for me is starting to work within our law firm is to have some practice group facing LPMs who are there driving understanding across the team, building up trust, building up ways of working, and embedding some of the tools. And then a team of fungible LPMs who can go in and use some of those tools, use some of the experience of others who have harvested the work and harvested the opportunity, and actually deliver on large, complex, risky client-facing matters. And they would typically be the larger ones for that fungible team. And then I think more and more we're going to need the technical specialists. So at the moment there's a lot of reworking of things, and we need to have lockdown processes, solutions, and bring in technology. And those technologies need someone to help land that, rather than making every LPM a very generic person who's knowledgeable about everything.
Yeah.
I think we need to have people who are specifically focused on bringing the benefits and all of the added value out of technology.
Yeah.
And then finally, I think there needs to be a team of coordinators to support the LPM, to get them to be able to focus in the more senior tasks, into the more value-adding tasks where they really do have a strong impact. And also additionally, that of course means that coordinators would become the LPMs of the future, and a development cycle in its own right.
Sure.
Is that what you're seeing in terms of the recruitment needs of your clients?
Definitely, I think so. I think if you were to compare LPM to perhaps another department within business services, finance, how much more things are structured in those departments. You would have, a finance director, controller, manager, accountant. There's succession there, and I feel that that's the way that the LPM is going to go as well. Certainly with the coordinator level roles, moving into LPMs. Traditionally, the structure's been very flat. You have a head of, and then you have a bank of LPMs or senior LPMs, but there's not really much underneath. So you have to call on resources from other areas. Yeah. So absolutely, I feel that that's the way it's going to go, and that's what we're focusing on as a business here. What about the future of LPM then? Where do you see that going?
So I think we've got the perfect storm at the moment. We've got AFAs, we've got increasing client expectations on delivery, and we've also got the firms trying to drive greater efficiencies in ways of working. Those things are very much playing into the hands of LPM in terms of where it's going to help us develop. I think where I see it, and some of this is based on the expectation that technology will bring some of this, is a greater standardisation of some of the processes underlying LPM. I've talked about maybe 80% of those processes becoming more standardised and less customised for every single matter. So standardisation first thing. I think with that comes a greater definition of the LPM role, allowing the LPM to play this process leadership role rather than the jack of all trades person who can just deliver on process things, which are is probably prevalent to the LPM role today.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, I think there would also be a greater role in portfolio management of commoditized services, things like and commoditized areas of advice. So things like GDPR would be an example of that. I think that there's definitely going to be an increased role in the client relationship management, and within that also an increased role in the selling to probably what would become within clients a more diverse buying or a more diverse buyer.
Yeah.
So non-lawyers playing the role of actually procuring the services of the legal services, and therefore the LPM playing a good role in understanding the needs of that person.
Yeah.
And then finally, I think over time, we may get to a stage where there's less change management required. Some of these processes are more known. The new lawyer cohorts are starting to grow up with the feeling of controls in place, and some of these technologies being second nature because they've worked with them from the beginning of their career. Yeah. At that point, I think LPM will be more of a process leading role than the change management role, which is today very much a solid part of the role.
How have you successfully integrated LPM at Baker McKenzie?
So we focus on controls, visibility, transparency, communication, and all of this with the underlying driver of efficiency. I think the combination of some very complex matters, some more risky matters in terms of the pricing structure of that matter, has enabled us to get some hooks in. Where we haven't had some hooks, we've had to create some hooks, maybe lending our services in pricing, lending our commercial understanding of the client and bringing some challenge, bringing some more collaborative systems and things like that, and really driving some understanding and building up a trust within the legal teams of who they're working with and the role which we can play. And often that has been use each implementation as a stepping stone to move further up in the progress of that. I think additionally the LPM family at Baker McKenzie has really brought flexible approach, brought their skills, their structure, their ability to bring structure and control to a matter, but also to do it flexibly. So not to want to establish a lockdown process on day one, but to move slowly and change manage people towards that. I think additionally, where we've been requested by a client, we've gone to deliver very, very strongly and bring added value to those mandates and hopefully over-deliver. And at the same time trying to capture the attention of the internal teams and the wider internal teams to showcase what we're able to do and what value we're able to bring to the client and their reaction to it being alongside that. And I think all of those things have driven a good uptake within Baker McKenzie. And we've supported ourselves with a SharePoint functionality which has allowed us to bespoke, to meet some of the more complex needs, but also keep it simple so that it's available for the legal teams to engage with as well. So it's not always something which we're having to bring to the party, but they actually can use those processes themselves as well.
So what do you feel is the perfect mix within a department in terms of amount of lawyers, or the mix of lawyers and LPMs?
I think we're still on a change management program. It's difficult to define that specifically, and it will be different for different firms and different pieces of work within firms and different requirements of clients as well. I think that where we will start to see more or have more knowledge about what is the right mix will be when some of the change has died down, some of the technologies have become embedded within process, and I've spoken before about this 80% of processes could become core within all matters, no matter whether it's a contentious piece of work or a transactional piece of work or advisory. I'm very strong on the fact that there is the ability to provide that core process throughout, and then at that point everyone will understand their role a bit more because it will be repeated, and there will be a much clearer role both for the LPM and the lawyer and any of the operational technical staff who are adding value into that matter.
Sure. So what do you feel is more successful, having a structure with more generic LPMs or practice group facing LPMs?
So I think there's different drivers for this. There's the change management requirement that things are still quite new to legal teams, and the LPM is working with them to disaggregate tasks and re-engineer some of the processes to make them more efficient. The other driver is the fact that in order to have as much LPM capacity as you want to have a more fungible team, so that where there are peaks and troughs in different practice groups, you can move your team accordingly to make the best use of that team at all times and have the greatest capacity to meet the needs of the legal team. I think that the practice group alignment is still required in order to drive this ability to harvest the work, to understand where the opportunities for LPM to have a greater impact.
So next question, can matter-facing LPMs be remote from the core teams and still be successful?
I think increasingly we're using that model. Again, there's still the change management aspect, and if there are aspects which are quite new to the lawyers, if there's processes which haven't really had an LPM involved in, then there's still a lot of change, process re-engineering, learnings, harvesting and disaggregating work from the legal team and taking that back into the process space. Those bits probably can't yet be moved off, but once processes become a more steady state, a more iterative process which has been used on a number of matters or on the same client a few times, then absolutely. And even today we have a mix of an LPM on locally working with the core team, and then a number of coordinators and other operational staff who are in other offices, service centres across the globe. And that can work fine once that process is a bit more locked down.
Great, so some really interesting insights there. Thanks very much, Kevin. Thanks for your time. See you again soon.
Thanks.
Cheers.